For many people around the world, throwing away food has become almost automatic. It's a habit so deeply ingrained that it barely registers as a decision. A yogurt cup sits unopened in the fridge a day past its date. Into the trash it goes. A loaf of bread shows a best before stamp from last week, discarded without a second thought. Bags of vegetables, sealed and untouched, are thrown away simply because a number printed on the packaging has passed. We rarely pause to question it. We've been trained to believe that expired food is dangerous food. That once a date has passed, the contents inside are suddenly unfit for consumption. But what if that belief isn't entirely true? What if expiration dates aren't the strict safety warnings we think they are? And what if this misunderstanding is quietly fueling one of the largest waste crises on the planet? The truth is, the global obsession with food labels has grown far beyond convenience or safety. It has evolved into a system that encourages waste on an unprecedented scale. Food that required land, water, labor, fuel, and time to produce is thrown away, not because it has spoiled, but because of how we interpret a label. And the consequences of this behavior stretch far beyond our kitchens. Food waste today is an all-time high. Nearly 40% of all food produced worldwide never gets eaten. That's roughly 1.3 billion tons of food every single year, enough to feed hundreds of millions of people. Instead, it ends up rotting in landfills, releasing methane gas, and contributing directly to climate change. This problem isn't limited to wealthy nations, but it is especially pronounced in them. In the United States, the average household throws away between $1,365 and $2,275 worth of food annually. That's money spent, resources consumed, and meals lost, all while many families struggle with rising grocery prices and food insecurity. Yet the cost of food waste goes far beyond money. Producing food requires enormous amounts of natural resources. An estimated 45 trillion gallons of fresh water are used every year to grow food that is never eaten. Add to that the fuel used for transportation, refrigeration, packaging, and storage, and the environmental footprint becomes staggering. Food waste also takes up more than 1/5 of landfill space globally. As landfills overflow, communities face increased pollution, soil contamination, and greenhouse gas emissions. Humanity is placing an unprecedented strain on the planet's capacity to sustain itself. And here lies one of the greatest paradoxes of our time. While billions of meals are wasted each year, millions of people go hungry. Food insecurity affects families across the globe, even in countries with abundant food supplies. This isn't a problem of scarcity, it's a problem of distribution, perception, and systemic inefficiency. One of the biggest contributors to this inefficiency is the way we interpret food expiration dates. Most people assume that the date printed on food packaging is a hard safety deadline. Eat it before this date and you're safe. Eat it after, and you're putting your health at risk. But in reality, most date labels are not safety indicators at all. In many countries, including the United States, expiration dates are largely unregulated and non-standardized. They don't necessarily reflect when food becomes unsafe to eat. Instead, they often indicate when a product is expected to be at its peak quality, in terms of flavor, texture, or appearance. The origins of date labeling are surprisingly practical. After World War II, grocery stores began using dates internally to help employees rotate stock. These dates were never intended for consumers. But as packaged foods became more common, shoppers began asking for transparency. They wanted reassurance that the food they were buying was fresh. Manufacturers responded by printing dates directly on packaging. Over time, these labels evolved into marketing tools, signals of quality and freshness rather than clear safety guidelines. A longer shelf life implied convenience. A shorter one implied freshness. But clarity was never the priority. As a result, consumers today face a confusing array of terms: sell by, best before, best if used by, use by, and expires on. These labels vary not only by country, but sometimes by state, product category, or manufacturer. Even experts struggle to agree on their exact meanings. When people are confused, they tend to err on the side of caution. And in the context of food, caution often means throwing it away. Research consistently shows that most packaged foods are safe to consume well beyond their label dates, sometimes for weeks or even months. Canned goods, dry pasta, rice, cereal, frozen foods, and many dairy products often remain safe long after the printed date, if stored properly. Yet because labels are unclear, consumers default to fear. They throw food away not because it smells bad, looks spoiled, or tastes off, but because they don't want to take a risk. This fear-driven waste doesn't just affect households. Grocery stores and food producers also suffer massive losses. Retailers regularly discard food that has passed its labeled date, even if it's still safe. Farmers are forced to throw away produce that doesn't meet cosmetic standards, crooked carrots, blemished apples, or misshapen potatoes, despite being perfectly edible. These losses add up. Billions of dollars worth of food is wasted each year across the supply chain. And those costs don't disappear. They're passed on to consumers in the form of higher prices. This has led many people to question whether date labeling is fundamentally flawed or even exploitative. After all, neither consumers nor retailers truly benefit from discarding edible food. Some critics argue that conservative date labels encourage people to buy food more frequently, protecting brand image and ensuring peak quality at the expense of sustainability. While producers may not intend to promote waste, the system as it exists today certainly enables it. Cultural attitudes also play a major role. In many modern societies, especially in the United States, freshness is equated with value. Food that shows signs of age, even natural ones, is often seen as undesirable. We celebrate new, fresh, and just made, while quietly rejecting anything that appears imperfect. Ironically, many foods we consider delicacies rely on aging and fermentation. Cheese, yogurt, wine, kimchi, and sourdough bread all improve with time. Yet outside of these exceptions, aging food is viewed with suspicion. Social media has amplified this mindset. Online food trends encourage people to buy specialty ingredients for specific recipes, often used once and forgotten. Aesthetic grocery hauls and viral cooking videos promote abundance rather than practicality. The result is overpurchasing, cluttered refrigerators, and ultimately waste. In the U.S., policy decisions have further complicated the issue. Some states restrict grocery stores from donating past-date food to food banks due to liability concerns. Even when food is safe to eat, legal ambiguity discourages donation. As a result, usable food goes to landfills instead of people in need. Supermarkets also operate under the expectation of abundance. Fully stocked shelves signal freshness and choice to consumers. But maintaining that appearance requires overstocking, and overstocking leads to waste. Many retailers plan for a certain level of shrinkage, fully expecting that unsold food will be thrown away. Then, there's the issue of aesthetics. Grocery stores often reject produce that doesn't look perfect. Fruits and vegetables with minor blemishes or unusual shapes are discarded before they ever reach shelves. This practice alone accounts for millions of tons of wasted food each year. Despite these challenges, progress is possible and already happening. Around the world, companies and organizations are working to rescue near-expiration food and imperfect produce. By selling or donating these items at reduced prices, they challenge the idea that beauty equals quality. They also help normalize the idea that food doesn't have to look perfect to be valuable. Researchers and policymakers have long advocated for standardized date labeling. A clear, universal system could dramatically reduce consumer confusion and food waste. Studies suggest that standardization could save billions of dollars annually while easing environmental strain. In the U.S., industry groups have introduced simplified terms like best if used by to indicate quality and use by to indicate safety. While this is a step in the right direction, these labels are not yet mandatory nationwide, leaving confusion largely intact. Some countries have taken a more proactive approach. The United Kingdom launched public awareness campaigns encouraging people to look, smell, taste, don't waste. These campaigns teach consumers to rely on their senses rather than blindly following labels. Trusting your senses is often more reliable than trusting a date. Spoiled food typically shows clear signs: mold, foul odors, unusual textures, or unpleasant tastes. If food looks normal, smells fine, and tastes okay, it's often safe to eat. Of course, there are exceptions. Certain foods like deli meats, ready-to-eat salads, and unpasteurized products require more caution due to the risk of bacteria, such as listeria. But these exceptions should not define how we treat all food. Ultimately, addressing food waste requires a fundamental shift in mindset. We must stop viewing food as disposable and start recognizing it as a valuable, finite resource. This means buying more intentionally, storing food properly, understanding labels, and trusting our own judgment. If consumers were more aware of the environmental and social cost of food waste, many would think twice before throwing food away. Small changes, keeping food a little longer, Donating when possible, cooking with what we already have, can collectively make a massive difference. Food waste is not inevitable. It's the result of systems, habits, and assumptions that can be changed. By questioning expiration dates, challenging outdated standards, and valuing food beyond a printed number, we can reduce waste, save money, and ease the burden on our planet. Sometimes the solution isn't about producing more food, but about finally learning how not to waste what we already have.